is up, everybody? Welcome to Pub Sports Radio and welcome to Stat Diggers UFC Vegas 52. And we're going to dive deep into this 11-fight card. We were supposed to have like 14 or 15 fights. We had a couple fall off. We had the Bozer fight fall off, the Parsons fight fall off, and then another one fall off as well. But still, 11 fights, probably one of the lower level cards of the year, but still another opportunity to make some money. I'm here as always with the man behind the stats, Uncle Weezy. Weezy going a little bit later today, so we were able to get more research in, so that was good. Was able to take a rest day yesterday. How you feeling about this card?
It's not bad. I got to tell you, I like a lot more spots from a gambling perspective, even though there are a couple of fights on this card that nobody should be gambling on ever. And but there are some fights that I think that there are some really nice spots sticking out as well. So, hopefully we can find some spots to smash here, make some money on this card, and then move on to a pay-per-view next week.
Yeah, do you want to parlay Mike Jackson with Tyson Pedro for minus 350?
Minus 350. No, that's not Jackson, actually. That's Barry. Barry with Pedro. But God, my God, that is just unbelievable to think that some of these guys, like Dean Barry is minus 1,500 right now on Bet Online. We got a lot to talk about today, Brady.
Yeah, this is a 1-800 gambler card, but there are spots I do like, and I do already have 3 pretty big bets on this card. So we'll go through it real quick. This is going to be kind of a shorter show, guys. We're doing this kind of late, but 11 fights to go through. So I do want to shout out the chat real quick. We got Mushroom first one in here. Melon asking why we're going so late. Easter was yesterday, so kind of took the day off there, spend it with family. We got Tim in the chat, Bruce, Victor, Noah, Effie hanging out as well, saying let's go, ready to start digging on that ass, and I agree. We got Lou Betcha in the chat as well. Goaler and DXJC, thank you all for hanging out. If you guys can smash the like button, that'd be much appreciated. As always, we're going to dive right into it. And we're going to start with the very first fight of the night. And this could be, I want to say it's the second lowest level fight in UFC history. The first is going to be Mike Jackson versus CM Punk back in the day. This could be the second worst. So we have Dean Barry, 29 years old, 5'10". Mike Jackson, 37 years old, 6'2", with a 74-inch reach. Dean Barry is 4-1 in his only 5 fights, all 5 of them coming under 1.5 rounds. 4 by knockout, and then his 1 loss was by submission. And then Mike Jackson, he is 0-1 and 1 no contest and no contest coming over CM Punk in a fight where he won it, but he did test positive for that marijuana. And then he lost to Mickey Gall. That Mickey Gall fight was, I want to say back 2017, 2018, a while ago. And it was Mickey Gall's UFC debut, and it was also Mike Jackson's debut. And Gall club and subbed him in the first round. And then they gave him CM Punk. And we were talking about this the other day. At our meeting, and you were talking about how Dana White was so pissed off at Mike Jackson. And if you guys have not heard the interview, I'd recommend go watching. I've never seen Dana White shit on a fighter so bad than he did with Mike Jackson. And Mike Jackson won the fight, and Dana was pissed at him. He said he's never going to fight in the UFC again. Funny enough, they bring him back for some reason. This is the weirdest fight of the year, the weirdest fight of maybe the last couple years, but we have Dean Barry as a minus 1,500 favorite. And if you go watch tape on this guy, I don't even think he's UFC caliber. So it just tells you how bad Mike Jackson is. I think Dean Barry should come out here, starch Mike Jackson within the first round and a half, maybe. If he doesn't, they probably should just cut them both, man. So yeah, give me Dean Barry to starch Mike Jackson. Mike Jackson, he's not UFC caliber. He's not great, but Dean Barry's not much better. But Dean should get it done here. But yeah, I would not recommend parlaying a minus 1,500. I've already been seeing people do it, and it doesn't really benefit you much, especially on a fight like this. This is not Amanda Nunes. This is not Shevchenko. This is Dean Barry. So, Weezy, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, I think you should keep your money very, very far away from this fight. Look, I don't even remember what year it was the last time Mike Jackson fought, but it was against CM Punk, and he handled him pretty well. And, to CM Punk's credit, the dude fought for the full 3 rounds. I mean, he was trying to win that fight. He was trying to take Mike Jackson down. He was throwing big bombs, but it's just what the guy had no martial arts experience, really. He was just an entertainer who got a chance to fight in the UFC. And Mike Jackson, let's face it, he's a guy that was brought in to fight Mickey Gall, who had 1 pro fight, and to fight Mike and to fight oh wow, did you hear that? Bootsy is on a plus 750 underdog right now, as he is barking quite loud here for Mike Jackson. And you know what? He might be on to something. Look, he lost by sub to Anthony Pretty Boy Taylor, did Dean Barry in his second UFC fight. And if you watch that fight, dude, Barry takes him down and Taylor takes him down and has him subbed with a rear naked choke less than 10 seconds later. This guy, Barry, is a karate-style kickboxer. He is a kickboxing champion who made the transition from karate and kickboxing to mixed martial arts, while Mike Jackson's really more of a boxer here. This is striker against striker. Dean Barry is a very much higher level striker, much more pedigreed striker here than Mike Jackson, but his ground game is not very good. Pretty much all of his wins are in the first round. Dude, this is an absolute shit show. I won't be touching this fight at all. But if you put a gun to my head and said you got to bet 1 unit on either one of these guys, what I'd try to do is try to knock that gun away from my head, and then I'd go for a single leg, and meanwhile try to, control the gun hand so that they couldn't shoot me in the head. Yeah, and that's basically what I'm saying, is that I'd rather maybe have you guys have a chance to shoot me in the head than bet 1 unit on this fight. I would actually fight you if you had a gun. So, yeah, no, man, no, not going anywhere near with my money. Neither should you. It should be Dean Barry in the first round. But if you parlay this dude and lose, you deserve it.
I couldn't imagine parlaying Dean Barry and then him losing. It would be worse than like Agapova losing, right? It'd be worse than, I don't know, it'd be bad. It'd be very bad. But yeah, we'll take a look. Go ahead.
Check it out. You want to know what a minus 1,500 implied probability on that line is? I just did the calculation.
93.6?
It's 93.75. It's even higher than 93.6. He's got to win this fight 95 out of 100 times, 19 out of 20 times in order for you to have a 1.25% return on investment after 100 bets. Just stay away from it.
That's crazy, man. I mean, you can't bet this fight. So we have Dean Barry opened up minus 700. He's currently minus 1,500. Mike Jackson opened up plus 525. He's currently plus 750. Over under set at 1.5. The over 1.5 minus 110. Under 1.5 is minus 120. It actually opened up yesterday at plus 120. I was very, very tempted on that. Did not pull the trigger. It's now minus 120. And then the fight goes decision plus 170. The fight doesn't go. Is minus 230. I think this finishes. I think it finishes in the first round. I'd be kind of surprised if it didn't. And Dean Barry should be very ashamed of himself if he does not finish Mike Jackson in the first round. But I could also see it being a very sloppy, low-level fight that goes to decision as well. So it's a pass, man. There's no way you could bet anything on this, really.
Yeah, agreed, man. Let's just move on to the next one.
Yep, sounds good to me. Should I keep up the 1-800-GAMBLER ticker for the next fight?
Man, yeah, I mean, like, dude, you know what? This is not really even a 1-800-GAMBLER fight because, first of all, they have to both get locked in the cage for this to happen, which means that Felipe Lens would have to show up. And that hasn't happened in a very long time, you guys. I think it was before COVID. You remember before COVID? I think that's the last time Felipe Lens showed up for a fight. So I don't know, man. This is not one that I'm going to be putting money on either.
We have Marcin Prachnio going against Felipe Lens. My goodness. We have Prachnio, 33 years old, 6'3", with a 74-inch reach. Felipe Lens, 36 years old, 6'2", 78-inch reach. It's going to be Prachnio, who's 3 years younger. Prachnio with a 1-inch height advantage, and Prachnio with a 4-inch reach disadvantage. Prachnio 2-3 in his last 5 fights, made his debut against Sam Alvey. That was the fight where Sam Alvey dropped him. He got back up. He rushed forward with his hands down, and Sam Alvey knocked him out again. It was probably one of the more hilarious fights you'll ever see. Then he gets knocked out against Magomed Ankalaev, one of the bigger mismatches you'll ever see. And then he loses to Mike Rodriguez by knockout as well. 3 knockout losses in a row, all in the first round. Then they put him against a absolute killer in Khalil Roundtree. Everybody was on the under 1.5. I was on the under 1.5 thinking Roundtree goes out here and starches this bum. And that bum goes out there and 30-27s, Khalil Roundtree, outstriking him in every single round, like outstriking him 2-1. So that was weird to me. And then he goes out there against Ike Villanueva, and he looks really good. He's able to outstrike Ike Villanueva, eventually finishes in the second round. So he started out his career very, very poorly, but the last two fights, like Prochnio has been looking very good. As far as Felipe Lens, this guy, I don't know. This guy is he started out his career at light heavyweight. The majority of his career has been at light heavyweight. He then went to heavyweight, into the PFL as a heavyweight and won the $1 million championship there. And then he goes into the UFC, and I'm like, I kind of have high hopes for this guy. Like, this guy looks very good in the PFL tournament. Like, this guy looks like a killer at heavyweight. He goes into the UFC against Andrei Arlovsky, and then he looks like a complete bum, a complete shell of himself. This guy looks washed. He looks done. And he was like 34 years old. I was like, what's going on? And I was like, okay, maybe it's a one-off. Then he goes against Tanner Boser, and Tanner Boser, a decisionator, went out there and knocked him out, I think, in the first round. So Felipe Lens looks like a completely different fighter from the PFL days to the UFC. Since then, Weezy, he's had 6 fights canceled, the majority of them being because he pulled out with injuries. He's coming down a weight class, back to light heavyweight at 36 years old. This is another 1-800-GAMBLER fight. So I think it's simple as this. I really like the striking of Marcin Prochnio. He has the karate style. He's going to have the much more volume in this fight. Prochnio, very high volume, whereas Felipe Lens does not throw much at all, but it's going to be Lens who's probably the harder hitter, especially coming down from heavyweight. And then, of course, you got to worry about the Prochnio chin. So I think I lean Prochnio because I see him winning the minutes here. I see him outstriking Lens. Lens looks like a shell of himself since leaving the PFL. But, Lens is going to be live for that knockout. So give me Prochnio to win, but another 1-800-GAMBLER fight for me, Weezy.
Yeah. I mean, it is. You look at the chins of both of these guys. Prochnio has been knocked down on 3% of the significant strikes that he's absorbed. For Lens, it's over 1.5%. So, I mean, if we do a little bit of quick math here, we see that in 5 UFC fights, Prochnio has been knocked down 4 times, and Lens has been knocked down once in 2 UFC fights. So that's 5 out of 7 of these guys' combined fights. These guys have wound up looking at the lights wondering what the fuck happened. So Lens coming down to 205, he's probably the guy that lands the knockdown here, out of the 2 guys, in my opinion. But, Prochnio is fast. He mixes up his targets really well. You saw him going to the legs and to the body against Villanueva, and that worked very well. And Lens, throws with a lot of power. He does seem to throw with bad intentions when he lets his hands go, but he's just not doing that, really. I mean, you look at Prochnio, who's been standing for about 90% of his UFC career, is throwing 12.16 significant strike attempts per minute, while Lens, who's standing basically his entire UFC career, is throwing 6.56 significant strike attempts per minute. So, that's less than half. Or, that's a little bit better than half of what Prochnio throws. So, it's volume here of Prochnio, the mixing up of the target here. But, you can't trust this guy because, Ike Villanueva almost had him. You see, there was a big shot that Ike landed in the first that had Prochnio a little bit confused. And if it was a better finisher than Ike Villanueva, I think he would have got Prochnio out of there too. And we would have been talking about 4 times out of 5 that this guy, got knocked out in the first round. And even Khalil, if he would have even showed up to that fight, that was one of those Fight Island fights where you see the American over there on Fight Island. It's 3:00 in the morning when they're fighting. They haven't seen the light of day in 5 days, and they just look like a shadow of themselves. And we saw Khalil come back from Fight Island, and all of a sudden he puts together 2 fantastic performances, removes a man's leg in Bukowskis, and then now the most recent one, he looked fantastic as well. So, it's hard to know what's going on here in this fight. Is Felipe Lens going to show up for this fight? 6 consecutive fights canceled for Lens, and he's supposed to cut 30 pounds from the last time he weighed in. I don't know, man. This fight probably isn't going to happen. And if it does, I definitely won't be betting on it, Brady.
Yeah, I will say I did check Lens's Instagram. He does look in solid shape, but yeah, we got to see if he's going to show up. So I do want to see. He's supposed to fight Dontel Mays. That got canceled in 2020 in November. Lens injury. Ben Rothwell, an undisclosed injury. Ben Rothwell again canceled. Lens not medically cleared to compete.
Oh,
That was early 2021. Supposed to fight Rothwell again. Lens withdrew. That was a couple weeks later, and then he's supposed to fight OSP. OSP withdrew in that one, and then he was supposed to fight Azamat Mirzakhanov, and Lens withdrew from that as well. So, yeah, we'll see, man. I don't know if this fight happens, but if it does, I won't be betting it. Like, you take a look at the line, and we see that it is close to a pick, and we see that Marcin Prokhnio opened up minus 150. He's currently minus 115. Felipe Lens opened up plus 130. He's currently minus 105. The over-under set at 1.5 rounds, over 1.5 minus 145, under 1.5 plus 115. Fight goes plus 165. Fight doesn't go minus 215. I don't know. I think violence is interesting here. Maybe even like a Felipe Lens knockout prop could be interesting. But other than that, I think it's mostly a pass for me. Anything sticking out to you?
yeah. I'm looking at my prop template right now, which will be featured on our new show, Prop Ability, on the MMA Engine YouTube channel. And it's definitely liking the fight doesn't go to decision here because, I mean, we're talking about these guys have got 8 combined losses, Brady. Yeah. I'm sorry, 10 combined losses, 8 of them inside the distance. Neither one of these guys is known for their durability. And then you got Lens making a weight cut for the first time in a long time. He's off the juice. And Prokhnio's, you know, I mean, like, he's very chinny, you know, over 3% of the strikes landed against him are setting him on his ass. So, you know, fight doesn't go to decision might be the best way to play this one because you got to figure somebody's going to get finished. But if they don't, man, it'll be so frustrating to watch. You'll be booing these guys on your screen, you know, because they'll just probably be staring at each other. So, yeah, man, that's the only way that I would touch this fight is maybe betting the fight doesn't go and parlaying it with something else. I don't know.
Yeah, or like the fight ends in KO because, like you said, 8 out of 10 have ended by knockout. Neither's been subbed. So fight ends in KO might be something.
And neither one of these guys is trying to take anybody down. So, no. You know, I mean, but Lens does have a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. So I guess we got to talk about that. But, you know,
he doesn't wrestle.
I know. the sheet is very clear about that.
All right. Should we move the 100 gambler for the else fight or should we keep it?
Oh no, you know, I like this fight, man. I like this fight. Let's because then the orderlies are going to come for me, man, because I've already got a bet on this fight, actually.
Me too. So we'll go to the next fight, and we have Richie Long going against Cameron Else. We have Richie Long, who is 28 years old, 5'7", with a 69-inch reach. Cameron Else, 34 years old, 5'9", with a 71-inch reach. So on Tapology, this says the fight is at 125, but I believe it's going to be at 135, according to Cameron Else. So unless he's lying, we'll have to see. But I'm going to say it's at 135, and I'm going to say Richie Long is coming up to 135 here. Both of his fights in the UFC have been at 125. So he is coming up weight class. It's going to be Cameron Else who's going to have a 2-inch height advantage, and it's going to be Cameron Else who's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage, but it's going to be Richie Long, who is 6 years younger. So Richie Long made his debut against Jeff Molina. That was UFC 261. I believe it was the first card back with fans, and they put on an absolute war. One of the better fights of the year. I mean, that fight was phenomenal. And then loses that fight, looked good early, kind of fell off a cliff, and Molina took over. And then he lost a close decision with Cody Durden. I personally did score it for Richie Long, but it was a close decision loss nonetheless. Cameron Else made his debut against Kyler Phillips on short notice, lost that fight by TKO in the second round. So there are 2 fighters on this card that are kill or be killed. One of them is Cameron Else. The other one, Jourdain Wright. And Cameron Else, when he wins, it is in the first round. He's not won a fight outside of the first round, and he loses anytime the fight does leave the first round. And he actually falls off a cliff. It's really weird. Every time the fight enters the second round, the dude just looks horrendous. Kyler Phillips was in the second round. There's another fight where he looked dominant in the first round. I forget who it was against. He looked dominant in the first round, almost got the guy out of there. Second round comes around, the guy gets him out. And then there was the fight you sent me, Weezy, which I didn't watch initially, but I went and watched it. And, you know, Cameron Else was gassed like 30 seconds into the second round. Like, this guy had his hands on his knees, was so tired in the early second round. So it's safe to say Cameron Else is round 1 or bust here. Richie Long, I mean, this guy is very hittable, but he's very exciting. He's very tough. He's never been knocked out. I like that about him. He comes to get into these wars, to these brawls, and I think this is going to be an absolute war. And I kind of favor the more durable guy in Richie Long. I favor the guy with the better cardio and Richie Long, and I think it's a really good spot for him. So I like Richie Long. I think the first round is going to be very competitive, very sketchy. Even I think Else does have a lot of power. Else is a BJJ black belt. I don't think he's going to be able to take down a Richie Long. I don't think Else has the wrestling, but I think they're just going to stand and bang, and maybe Else can get him out of there early. But if not, I see a Richie Long just breaking this guy in the second round, finishing him, and giving Else, I think, his second or third finish loss there. So I like a Richie Long. He's a big favorite, but I think he does get this done in very dominant fashion. But this is going to be one of the better fights on the card. I think this is one of those fights that is going to go under the radar because both these guys want to get into a war. I think we're going to get into a war, and I think someone's getting finished here, Weezy.
Yeah, I think somebody is definitely getting finished here. The fight doesn't go to decision. Definitely one of my most confident picks of the week. There is nothing you love more when you're betting that line than to see a killer be killed fighter. And if you want to make it even better, give me a killer be killed fighter who puts his hands on his knees 5.5 minutes into a fight from complete exhaustion. That is the best kind of killer be killed fighter because that fight is ending. That fight where he went the distance, it was 14 of his 15 fights have finished inside the distance, for or against. The one that didn't, I swear to God, that ref almost stopped the fight because of exhaustion. I've never seen anybody look that bad in the second round. Not since Fialho in the Dos Santos fight that he lost on the regional scene have I seen somebody just completely out of it in the second round. So this is great. This is a great matchup for Archie Lang here because this dude just marches forward like a zombie, and he's got the chin to absorb big shots. So I think he's just a nightmare matchup for Cam Else here because Cam's the kind of guy who has to hurt you in order to get you to the ground in order to use that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And pretty much this guy is just going to be going for Darce chokes. That's really how he finishes fights when he gets submissions. So if he's not getting a Darce choke on you, he's not really going to be submitting you. And if he's not knocking you down, he's probably not getting you in that Darce choke because, Archie Lang does have 4 takedowns in 2 fights, but he doesn't really even need to wrestle here. I think he's just going to march this guy down. I don't think he really even wants to be on the ground with him. But it's not like Else has been like this guy that's been a great control time master on the regional scene either. He's a killer be killed fighter. He's looking to land a big shot and then jump on a choke. I think it's a terrible matchup for him. We don't have much in the way of stats here because we've only got 1 fight for Else and we've got 2 fights for Kulang. But really important number here is on that, measurables and career experience statistics. In a 15-fight sample size for Cameron Else, we've got a 3.2-minute average fight time. And he doesn't have the conditioning to go to the full 15 here. So, I think that this is one of those fights that bantamweight fights finish, about 49% of the time. But, you're going to get a good opening line and the fight doesn't go because this one's going to finish about 90% of the time just because one of the fighters brings a 7-minute gas tank and he fights like he's on cocaine. I mean, he comes out he really does, though. I mean, you watch the tape on this guy. He's trying to kill you and do it quickly, and it's on purpose because he knows he doesn't push the kind of gas tank in order to last more than a round. So he's coming out trying to kill you, and Archie Lang's just going to be marching forward, throwing bombs at him. So this is going to be a car crash. Can't wait for this fight. Super excited for this one. Somebody's going to get served.
Yeah, we love betting the fight doesn't go on these killer be killed quitter type fighters, and I think Else just fits that build there. So yeah, we see that Archie Long is a pretty big favorite here. Opened up -160, he's currently -235, and Cameron Else opened up +140, he's currently +200. They took off. The fight doesn't go. They took it off on Bet Online.
Yeah, well, I got my bet in.
Yeah, here we go. So they still.
I was saying, why did they stop at 1 prop on that fight? That was bizarre.
Yeah, people must have been smashing it, but yeah, it's still on 5 dimes. The fight doesn't go on 5 dimes. -160. The fight goes decision is +120. The over under is set at 2.5. The over 2.5 +135. The under 2.5 is -165. And on DraftKings, the under 2.5 is -155 as well. See, I like violence in this spot.
Yeah, I love violence in this spot, and I'm thinking Archie Lang gets this done late first round, early second round here.
Yep. Agreed. We will move on to the next fight here, and I will bring up the 1-800 Gambler ticker once again. I'll be doing that a couple more times on this card, but we have the return of Tyson Pedro going against Ike Villanueva. It does not get much better than this. We have Tyson Pedro, who is 30 years old, 6'3", with a 79-inch reach. Ike Villanueva, 38 years old, 6'1", with a 73-inch reach. Pedro, 8 years younger. Pedro, 2-inch height advantage, and Pedro, a 6-inch reach advantage. So Pedro is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. He had a knockout win against Paul Craig, decision loss against Ilir Latifi, submission win against Saperbeg Safarov, submission loss to OSP, and then a knockout loss against Shogun. That last fight was back in 2018. So it's been a very, very long layoff for Tyson Pedro. Ike Villanueva has been the much more active fighter. He had a knockout loss against Chase Sherman. That was his debut. A knockout loss against Jourdain Wright. That was that cut stoppage. A knockout win against Vincent Morea in that second round. A knockout loss to Marcin Prokhnio in the second round. And then a knockout loss to Nikolai Negumereanu in the first round. So as you can see, he's either going out there getting the knockout or he does get knocked out himself. You take a look at Ike Villanueva. This guy has, probably some of the most finished losses you ever see. This guy's been knocked out 7 times, and he's been submitted 8 times for a massive 15 losses inside the distance. And you have Tyson Pedro with a 100% finish rate. So it's safe to say, this fight probably does finish. It probably does finish early on, but there are some question marks in terms of Tyson Pedro. I've not seen him in a while, but he's going to have a lot of advantage in the fight. Ike Villanueva, very, very hittable. Thus far in 5 UFC fights, he is sporting a 37% striking defense. The chin does not really seem to be there. He gets dropped a ton, knocked out a ton. And then if this fight hits the mat in any type of way, like Pedro's going to instantly submit him. So, you got to go Pedro here, but it's really hard to lay -600 on a guy that's not fought in like nearly 4 years, Weezy.
Dude, there's not a bettable line on this fight anywhere. This is disgusting. This is absolutely disgusting, Brady. You want to read off to what Tyson Pedro inside the distance is, and then just for shits and grins, I'll give you the implied probability of it.
Yeah, so Tyson Pedro inside the distance is sitting at -245, and I think that's going to get wider, honestly.
71% implied probability, man. I mean, come on, dude. That's brutal. What fight doesn't go to decision?
Fight doesn't go to decision is -405.
This 405 is a 80.2% implied probability. And I mean, I still think it covers, dude, Tyson Pedro is really good. You go back and you watch the tape on this guy, especially even in some of the fights that he lost. I mean, when he comes out, his striking is great. He's got power. He mixes up the location of his kicks. He'll go low. He'll go to the body. He'll go to the head. He's tricky. He's a southpaw. And then the grappling. My God, I mean, he's really good in the grappling too. Fantastic on the ground. Really did a number on Paul Craig down there. Actually. Finished Paul Craig with a crucifix and elbows. When he gets in the clinch, like Dominic Cruz was creaming his jeans about this guy's head position in the clinch and stuff like that. Every time he's got the underhook on the right side, he's on the right side underneath the chin on the fence. He wins clinch exchanges. He wins striking exchanges. He wins grappling exchanges. And then you see, Ike Villanueva out there getting finished in over 90% of his losses. And, the bookies are making it very, very, very clear to you guys out there that they don't want your money on Tyson Pedro. They don't want your money on the fight doesn't go to decision here because it's just going to happen. Somebody's going to get knocked out here. It's probably going to be Ike, but it's just this guy, Pedro, you can't even bet it. He hasn't fought in 4 years, so you can't lay over 70% implied probability on an inside the distance bet on a guy that hasn't been around in that long, on a guy that's really good for about a round and a half and then has been known to kind of turn on a dime. I mean, he looked great against Shogun Rua in the first, and then it just fell apart like a Chinese motorcycle. And the same thing with Ovens. He was killing Ovens, and then he went for a sloppy takedown, wound up on the bottom, and Ovens put him out. I think got him with a Kimura. Or maybe even it was close to a straight arm lock almost that he got Tyson with there. So Tyson Pedro fights can turn on a dime. But I mean, is Ike Villanueva going to be the guy to push off submission attempts from Tyson Pedro? No, probably not. Is he going to be the one to close the distance and land big shots on Tyson Pedro? Probably not, man. Pedro's got a huge reach advantage here and a huge power advantage, and Ike is pretty one-dimensional. He pretty much just throws hands, while Pedro really manages distance really well with his kicks as well. And even if Tyson doesn't like the fact that Ike's marching him down, I think he can put him up against the cage and win minutes there. He can win minutes on the ground. But can you lay, minus 600 on a guy that hasn't fought in this long? No. And then you say, well, what's the inside the distance? Well, the inside the distance is almost damn near minus 300. So you can't bet that either. The fight doesn't go to decision is over an 80% implied probability. You don't want to get in the habit of betting those lines regularly. So it looks like all signs point to Tyson Pedro, but you just can't bet him because there's a big chunk of missing information here, and that is, why did it take him so long to come back from the original injury that he got in the Shogun Rua fight to his leg? And why haven't we seen him since? 4 years is a long time.
Yeah, and Bootsy seems to like Ike a little bit as well. So Bootsy's on Ike and he's on Mike Jackson.
Yeah, dude, I think Bootsy's going to get fucking rinsed this week. But you never know, man. It's a fight. It's a fight. And we haven't seen Tyson in a very long time. So, I mean, anything is possible. Ike's been around that block about 6-7 times. He's seen a lot of really good fighters, been in there with just about everybody. So, you don't want to just say like, oh, Ike's a bum or anything like that. He's not, he's got really good hands. He's got power in those hands, and he walks forward, which is exactly what you have to do when you're a boxer. So, I think he's got some things to like here. It's just that Tyson Pedro is on another level with his striking, with his clinch game, and with his grappling.
Yeah, for sure. We see Pedro open up minus 450. He's currently minus 600. And Ike Villanueva open up plus 350. He's currently plus 425. The over-under set at 1.5 rounds. Over 1.5 plus 120. The under 1.5 is minus 150. Fight goes decision plus 285. Fight doesn't go decision is minus 405. And like you said, Pedro inside the distance minus 245. Villanueva inside the distance is only plus 455.
Yeah, I mean, God, it's just all unbettable. I would, if Tyson Pedro was minus 200 here, I'd be backing up the truck, dude. If I could get Tyson Pedro, at like minus 115 inside the distance, man, I would be betting the shit out of it. But it's just, I mean, you can't do it. You know that conversation you're going to have with yourself late at night after a rough night when you say, God damn, I backed up the truck on a guy who hasn't fought since Brady was in fucking high school. Why did I do that? It's just not a good idea, dude. Let enjoy the comeback fight of Tyson. And if he looks as good as we think he does, then we got someone to roll with next time.
Yep, for sure. Let's move on to the next fight we have. Dwight Grant going against Sergey Kondoshko. We have Dwight Grant, 37 years old, 6'1", 76-inch reach. Sergey, 29 years old, 6'1", with a 74-inch reach. Dwight Grant is going to be 8 years older, and then it's going to be Dwight Grant with a 2-inch reach advantage. So Dwight Grant is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Had a split decision loss his last time out against Trinaldo. Prior to that, had a split decision win against Stefan Sekulic. Prior to that, got knocked out by Daniel Rodriguez. Prior to that, won a split decision against Alon Joban. And then prior to that, knocked out Carlo Pedersoli. As far as Sergey Kondoshko, he hasn't fought in a long time. The last time he did fight was against Rustam Kopylov, and that was a decision loss. I want to take a look and see how long it's been since he has fought. And He's fought his last fight against Kopylov was 2 years and 5 months ago. So another guy with a long layoff, and his last win was 2 years and 10 months ago. That was against Rostam Akman. This is probably the fight I'm least looking forward to on the card. We have two guys who are kind of low volume. Dwight Grant is going to have the power advantage, but Sergey, he's young. He's 29 years old. We haven't seen him since he was 27, and he has 33 fights. He's a young guy still. So I don't know, Weezy. Not too much interest in this fight, honestly. I feel like this could be one of the most, if not the most boring fight on the card, potentially.
Yeah, and it's kind of confusing, too, to look at, because you got, Kondoshko 8 years younger. So you like that, but then you look at Dwight Grant, and he's got the 2-inch reach advantage. He's a switch stance fighter, so you like that on the Grant side. But Kondoshko, a serious experience advantage here, despite the fact that he is 8 years younger. You like that. 18 more professional fights, 80 more years in the cage, or 80 more minutes in the pro cage, and almost 8 more years as a pro, which is crazy because that can't be right. God damn, I got something wrong here because I've got the length of Kondoshko's pro career at 18 years, but I've got him at only 29 years old, which meant that he would have taken his first fight at the age of 11. And even Russians aren't that badass. So something's wrong there. But look, I mean, Kondoshko does seriously have a lot of experience here over Grant, but it's Grant who's fought 7 UFC fights, Kondoshko only 2. So Grant only finishing via knockout, Kondoshko kind of an equal opportunity finisher. Grant finished in 1 of 4 losses, Kondoshko 3 of 6. So you don't see anything that you're really sinking your teeth into there in terms of fight goes, fight doesn't go. When we look at the striking stats, power from both of these guys, and really I think what we're going to see here is a fight that takes place at striking range for pretty much the whole damn fight, because Kondoshko only 6 takedown attempts in 2 fights. He's only gotten 1 of them, only 3% control time for. And even though Dwight Grant has gotten 3 takedowns in 7 fights, he's only attempted 3 and 2.55% control time for. So this is going to be Grant against Kondoshko on the feet here. And we know what Grant brings. He's a switch stance fighter, power from both hands, and he can definitely hurt you. God damn, he was so close to finishing Daniel Rodriguez. That was a hell of a fight. And then Kondoshko is a guy who really leans on that left hook of his, that lead left hook, and spinning back kicks to the body. So I think that we're going to see a striking match here, man. A 15-minute striking match until somebody gets hurt badly. Both of these guys have landed knockdowns in their UFC tenure. With Grant, it's 3 in 7 fights, and with Kondoshko, it's 1 in 2 fights. So these guys have had 4 knockdowns in 9 fights, and they've Grant has actually been knocked down 3 times in 7 fights himself. So he's been knocked down as well. So I believe that if we do see a fight, it's going to be, if we do see a finish in this fight, it's going to be by knockout. Both these guys have faced pretty good UFC competition as well. So it's just that Grant's wins are better. He's faced more experienced competition against guys like Sekulic and Jourdain and Pedersoli as comparison to Akman which was the win for Kondoshko. So yeah, man, I see it being a striking match. I think both guys are really dangerous on the feet, and I just don't have a whole lot of interest in betting it right now. What is the line on this fight? I haven't even looked.
Yeah, it should be close. Yeah, it is close. We have Dwight Grant opened up plus 165, currently minus 103. Sergey opened up minus 190, currently minus 117. I think a pick'em sounds about right. The fight goes decision minus 155. The fight doesn't go plus 115. Over 2.5 minus 170, and under 2.5 is plus 140. I will not be laying a penny on this fight. I think it's going to be very, very close. People in the chat are talking about a split decision, and I think that's definitely on the table here.
Yeah, I think that's not a bad look at all, because guess what? Dwight Grant's been to 3 split decisions in 7 UFC fights. 3 out of his last 4 fights going to split decisions. So yeah, man, this could absolutely end in a split, and it's going to be a striking match here. That's what these guys are going to do. So, it's anybody's fight, in my opinion, and the line seems to agree. But why the hell did Dwight Grant open up at plus 165 with Kondoshko not having fought in over 2 years and really doesn't have many signature wins? You look at who this guy Kondoshko has beat. you're not going to recognize any of these names.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a weird fight. But we'll move on to a really good fight, Weezy. I'm a big fan of the Beverly Hills Ninja. We have Jourdain Wright, who is 30 years old, 6'2" with a 77-inch reach. Marc-André Barrio, he is 32 years old, 6'1" with a 74-inch reach. It's going to be Wright, who is 2 years younger, and it's also going to be Wright, who has a 1-inch height advantage and a 3-inch reach advantage as well. Jourdain Wright is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Had that loss by knockout against Anthony Fluffy Hernandez on the Contender Series. It did get overturned because Hernandez popped for marijuana, but Weezy, we're going to count that as a knockout loss because marijuana is not a performance-enhancing drug. So he got knocked out, and everybody saw it. It happened. And then he went and knocked out Ike Villanueva in his debut, got knocked out by Joaquin Buckley twice in that fight, and then knocked out Jamie Pickett, and then got knocked out by Bruno Silva in his last fight. Marc-André Barrio is 2-2 and won no contest in his last 5 fights. He lost a decision to Jung Young Park. He knocked out Oscar Bajota, but he did get popped for performance-enhancing drugs. So that actually was overturned, and rightfully so. And then knocked out Abu Azaitar in the 3rd round, won a decision against Dalcha, and then got knocked out by Chidi his last time out. So, like I said earlier, there's 2 fighters on this card that are kill or be killed. One is Cameron Else, and the other one is Jourdain Wright. Jourdain Wright has won every single one but one of his fights in the 1st round. The only fight that he did win in the 2nd round was like in the 1st minute of the 2nd round there. And Jourdain Wright in 15 professional fights has never been over that 1.5 round mark. He's either getting finished early or doing the finishing early, and you can tell by the way he fights. I mean, this guy lands 8 strikes per minute. He absorbs 8 strikes per minute. He has a 38% striking defense. His chin's up in the air. He doesn't have a good chin to begin with, and he throws with a ton of power. So he's either going to go out there and knock you out, or you're going to knock him out. So that's why I like Jourdain Wright fights. They're so much fun to watch for as long as they last, and I do see this one probably finishing early as well. So yeah, Marc-André Barrio is coming in on short notice. It was supposed to be Jourdain Wright going against Roman Kopylov, which would have been even better. But Marc-André Barrio is stepping in on short notice, which is interesting because he just got knocked out about a couple months ago against Chidi and Jaquani, and that really shocked me because we always talked about how durable Marc-André Barrio was, and then Chidi starched him in 16 seconds, and that is definitely on the table here. But I gotta like Barrio in this fight because I have seen him go 3 rounds. I think he's going to have the better cardio. I think if this fight does get extended, I do favor him massively. But Jourdain Wright, this guy is very, very dangerous early on. Marc-André Barrio's chin has been cracked and has been cracked recently. I think Jourdain Wright's live, but I think he's live for about a round, honestly. So I think the rightful favorite is Barrio, but Jourdain Wright's about as live as a dog as you can get. But yeah, it's violence for me in any Jourdain Wright fight. But this one especially, I like violence here, Weezy. I think the under 1.5 even at plus money is a solid look. I think the fight doesn't go to decision is a solid look. I think it's Jourdain Wright early or Marc-André Barrio. I think it could be early as well, or I think he can kind of break Jourdain Wright as the fight goes on. But I like violence here regardless.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, me too. I'm definitely already on it. When we look at the tail of the tape, it's Wright who's an inch taller. He's got the 3-inch reach advantage, and he's 2 years younger. You like all that. 4 less fights than Barrio and 2 less fights at the UFC level. But really, you look at that one number, and it's the average fight time for Jourdain Wright as a pro, 1.83 minutes. 1.83 minutes in 15 fights. If this fight, goes 2 minutes, that's, unlikely. You get plus money, that this fight's going to go more than 2 minutes, just because of the average fight time here for Jourdain Wright. So that's such an important statistic to look at here. He's a killer be killed fighter, and he's getting knockouts and submissions, and he's been knocked out in all 3 of his losses. And Barrio, is a guy who can finish. He's got a 70% finish rate in his 13 wins. And Jay brought it up in the chat. He made a great point. He said Jourdain Wright, 10 out of 10 on offense, 0 out of 10 on defense. And both are correct. I mean, you look at the offensive striking numbers for Jourdain Wright, 8 significant strikes landed per minute, almost 64% striking accuracy, almost landing a knockdown on 2.5% of the significant strikes that he lands, averaging out to 3 knockdowns per 15 minutes. Those are great video game numbers on offense. And you're like, how the hell has this guy lost 3 fights? Well, let me get to the defensive numbers. He's absorbing 8.29 significant strikes per minute. He's got a 38.5% striking defense, and he's getting knocked down on damn near 5% of the significant strikes that he absorbs, the biggest number in the UFC for somebody who has more than one fight, and that is averaging out to 6 knockdowns allowed per 15 minutes. So another dictionary definition of a killer be killed fighter. Exactly why you said, Brady, that this guy is as fun to watch as it gets, because you know you're going to get a fight. You know, when Jourdain Wright steps into that cage, it's going to be a fight, and somebody's going to get knocked out. It's happened the last 5 times. Lost knockout, win knockout, lost knockout, win knockout, lost knockout. It's just knockouts, you know. Somebody's going to get served here. And I bet the fight doesn't go to decision. I also have Jourdain Wright by first round knockout because he's really not subbing anybody at this level. You look at who those submissions are against in his career, and they are against guys that are not professional mixed martial artists, you know. I mean, well, they're classified as such, but they're not great and not UFC level guys. So it's, you know, it's a pretty easy fight to break down because Barrio has 2 takedowns in 7 fights. So, you know, I mean, he's not going to try to wrestle Jourdain Wright unless he gets cracked and then just shoots out of instinct. But it's going to be on the feet. These guys are going to be swinging hammers. I think Wright is very live to knock out Barrio in the first round, seeing as we just saw his chin get cracked by Chidi Njokuani. And Jourdain Wright is just as dangerous, like it or not. The guy's got crazy good offense, and he can absolutely hurt you in the first 2 minutes of any fight. So this is a great fight to bet violence. Am I going to be planting my flag on either side here? Probably not. I'm just going to say I'll take the 10-1 for first round knockout by Jourdain Wright for a quarter unit. And I'll take, fight doesn't go to decision at -210 for 2.1 units. And then I really don't care who wins because I just know that somebody's going to get knocked out.
Yep, I'm hoping DraftKings and FanDuel open up Jourdain Wright round 1 KO at something crazy. I think last time it was like Jourdain Wright, like round 1 knockout, like plus 1,400. Like I'm hoping they do something crazy like that. I'll definitely jump on. So they have the fight doesn't go to decision -210. The fight goes to decision plus 170. Over under set at 1.5 rounds. Over 1.5 is -160. Under 1.5 is plus 130. Marc-André Barrio opened up -175, currently -164, and Jourdain Wright opened up plus 150. He is currently plus 144 as well. Yeah, I think that the fight doesn't go. I mean, this is a Jourdain Wright fight. Jourdain Wright's been into the second round twice. The first fight that he went into the second round, it was actually a win where he knocked out Gabriel Checo in 48 seconds into the second round. And then the other time he went into the second round was in the Buckley fight where he got knocked out. Fight probably should have been stopped in the first. He comes out in the second, not there, and then Buckley knocks him out again for sure in 18 seconds in the second round. Other than that, you know, round one KO, so on and so forth, and like early round 1 as well. So, yeah, I think a fight doesn't go as a solid look. And Marc-André Barrio, this guy definitely has some power, right? They call him the power bar for a reason. He's going to press forward, and Jourdain Wright's lack of defense, lack of chin, really scares me. And he doesn't like being pressured as well. So I think Marc-André Barrio can easily come out here and starch Jourdain Wright just as easily as Wright can starch Barrio. I think somebody's getting starched, Weezy.
Somebody's getting starched like they're in a bakery. This is going to be a great one. Can't wait for this fight. You got to look forward to a Jourdain Wright fight every damn time. And you know what I look forward to? Cashing that fight doesn't go to decision ticket, because it's been a money train every goddamn time this guy is stepped into the cage. I've had a fight doesn't go to decision line bet, and it's cashed every damn time. And I've just laughed my ass off about how easy it is. It's so easy. And they're making it easy for us again. What, -400 on Tyson Pedro, and then you get -200 on Jourdain Wright? How does that make sense? It doesn't. That's why we smashed the spot.
I know we gotta smash the Jourdain Wright violent spots. I got a max bet on the Wright Silva fight not starting round 3. No sweat. I mean, played out just how I thought. Jay saying Wright by decision. Jay, if Wright wins a decision, I will shave my ass on camera because I just do not see that happening. So we have that to look forward to next week if Wright does indeed win by decision. Let's see the next fight here. We have probably one of the better fights on the card. We have Sumadarji going against Manel Kopp. We have Sumadarji, 26 years old, 5'8" with a 72-inch reach. Manel Kopp, 28 years old, 5'5" with a 68-inch reach. Medarji, 2 years younger. Medarji with a 3-inch height advantage, and Medarji with a 4-inch reach advantage as well. Sumadarji is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, made his debut against Luis Smolka, won by submission, or lost by submission in that second round. He won a decision against Andrei Sukumtop. He won by knockout against Malcolm Gordon, and then he won a decision against Zaruk Adashev, 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Manel Kopp made his debut against Alexander Pantoja. He lost by decision. He lost by decision against Mateus Nicolau as well. Then he knocked out Udi Osborne with a flying knee in the first round, and then knocked out Zhalgas Sumagulov, probably the best Manel Kopp's looked thus far in the UFC. So this is kind of it's kind of a tricky fight for me, because you take a look at Manel Kopp. This guy's fought the better competition both in and outside the UFC. I mean, making your debut against Alexander Pantoja is no joke, and that was the fight where he was talking about, slipping, on the canvas, because he was kind of used to having shoes and all that. He did not really look himself, and even in the Nicolau fight, he did not look that great. Although a lot of people did think he won, but the problem with Manel Kopp is always going to be, the lack of volume, and that's something that I don't like. And this is a fight where Medarji, who's probably going to be throwing the more volume, Medarji, who's a very, very good striker, Medarji, who's very young and improving. But you have Manel Kopp, who is very well-rounded. I believe he's a brown belt or black belt in BJJ, and you kind of think, you take a look at Medarji, his 4 losses all come by submission. You got to think if Manel Kopp wants to take the path of least resistance, get this fight down to the mat and take down Sumadarji. But I went and watched some fights of Manel Kopp inside the UFC and outside the UFC. It's not really his game. I have seen a fight where he did go for takedowns for 15 minutes and was able to eventually get the submission, but his control is not that great. His wrestling's okay. I guess if he could get the fight on the mat, maybe he's live for a sub, but Medarji has shown improved takedown defense since the Luis Smolka fight. I don't know. I just feel like this fight can play out a bunch of different ways, but I could also see this fight playing out very close. If Manel Kopp comes in here and wants to strike with Medarji for 15 minutes, it could be a very, very close and competitive fight. And that's kind of what concerns me when you take a look at Kopp and see that he is a decent sized favorite. But I do lean the Kopp side. I like the experience. I like the level of competition in and outside the UFC. I like how dangerous he is. I like how powerful he is. I like that grappling game of his in his back pocket. I like the wrestling, but Medarji is absolutely no joke. This guy is very, very good. And if Manel Kopp does not come in here with the right game plan, he very well could lose this fight. Weezy, probably, honestly, one of my favorite fights on the card. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I think it's a great one. And I mean, we're talking about a division right now that's really fun to watch with a lot of great prospects. And both of these guys are young. Sue's only 26, Kopp 28. So both of these guys can be making big improvements still at this point in their career. They're not really even in their prime yet. So it's a great fight, great stylistic matchup. I've seen a lot of people already on Kopp, and I mean, I get it. He's the better wrestler here. He's more experienced here. 5 more fights, 80 more minutes in the cage, 3.5 more years as a pro. Better finisher. A lot of power in his strikes, and the better wrestler. And obviously it's that strength of schedule. I mean, this guy's coming in and debuting against Pantoja. He's fighting Nicolau. Even Udi Osborne and Zhalgas Sumagulov, his wins are better, than Sukumtov, Gordon, and Adashev, I would say. Smolka, somewhere in the middle there. But, this is a guy that in Kopp who's shown some power recently, 2 wins in a row by knockout early. And I think people are getting out just a bit over their skis here, because we got to talk about stylistically how this fight is going to play out. I don't see Manel Kopp wrestling Sumadarji successfully and winning minutes on the ground here. It's not really his game, you guys. It just isn't. He's got 2 takedowns in 4 UFC fights, and on those 2 takedowns, he's averaged less than 3% control time over his 4 UFC fights. So excuse me, taking people down and holding them down and winning minutes there isn't really Manel Kopp's game. And even Sumadarji has stopped 7 of the 9 takedown attempts against him, but he's been controlled just under 20% of his UFC career. But while this fight's on the feet, Sue's good, man. He moves very well. He throws both arms, both legs, knees, kicks, punches, and he's got a big time reach advantage. He is a absolutely huge flyweight here, and he's going to be the much bigger guy here. Kopp's going to have to walk forward, because if he just stands at distance and tries to outbox and outpoint Sumudaerji, he's going to lose. He will lose a distance striking match in the center of the cage with this guy. He's going to have to pressure Sumudaerji because Su's faster than him, he's longer than him, and he has better footwork than Manel Kopp. So this is a very interesting stylistic matchup here. I think Kopp's more powerful. I think he's the better wrestler. He's clearly fought the far better brand of competition, and he's more experienced. But that height and length advantage for Sumudaerji, combined with the speed and the footwork, and the fact that Manel is not a zombie that just walks forward. He is a counter striker. You know, he's a guy that's waiting for his opponents to throw first. I think he might get out volumed here. I think he might have a hard time closing this distance. And I love Sumudaerji's conditioning as well. So I don't know, man. I see this fight taking place on the feet. And frankly, I kind of see Su winning minutes in the middle of the cage here. How are you reading this one?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it could be close. I mean, like you said, Manel Kopp, he can wrestle. It's just the control's not there. Like even fights outside the UFC, he can get guys down, but they're getting up instantly. And you got to think Mudaerji's definitely working on that part of his game. So I think it will be standing. And at that point, you know, is Kopp going to look minus 175? I don't know. If he comes in here and he fights like he did against Pantoja, where he was doing more dancing than throwing, then you know, Sumudaerji should run away with it with the volume. But he has been gradually getting better, you know, each and every fight in the UFC in terms of the volume. Like against Pantoja, he didn't throw anything. He danced a lot. Against Nicolau, got a little better, especially as the fight went on. Against Odi Osborne, you know, the volume started to be there. And then especially put it all together against Olga Sumagulov. But I don't know, man. It could play out very, very close. We have Manel Kopp as a decent sized favorite, and he's continuing to get wider. He opened at minus 180, instantly went to minus 140, currently minus 175. Sumudaerji opened up plus 155, currently at plus 150. And yeah, I think I'm gonna just pass on this fight. We don't have props yet, and even like I don't know, fight goes to decision. We don't have yet. Fight doesn't go. We don't have yet. But we take a look at both guys. Kopp has a 94% finish rate, has only won one decision in 23 fights. And then Sumudaerji, an 87% finish rate. I think he's only won like one decision in 19 fights. And then you take a look at their losses. Sumudaerji finished in 100% of his losses. And then Kopp has been submitted twice, never knocked out. So any read on the fight goes or doesn't go?
Yeah, so the fight doesn't go. I mean, immediately when you look at the finish rates of both fighters, it looks like a lock, right? But then you see it's like, okay, Su's really only getting subbed, you know, and I mean, Kopp has subs on his record, but you kind of got to get a guy down and hold him down in order to get that submission. I don't know if that's going to happen for Kopp. So, you know, I think when you look a little bit deeper and then you compare it to the fact that this is a flyweight fight, and flyweight fights finish about what, 43% of the time. You want to be really careful about paying up a 67% implied probability at like minus 200 for this fight not going to decision, because I'm anticipating it's going to open somewhere around there. You got a guy with a 94% finish rate on one side and 87% in the other. That's 12 of 14, and that's 16 of 17. So that's 28 of 31, over 90%, 91% of these guys combined wins coming inside the distance. So that is going to be probably what people are looking at here. And I see whenever that line opens, and I think that's why it hasn't opened. This fight's been on the books for a minute. This is one of the ones where there's a big divergence between the finish rate for the division and the finish rate of the two fighters involved in this particular fight. And they're both sitting over 85%. So I think that you're going to see a lot of action on the fight doesn't go here, and I absolutely get it.
Yeah, so it looks like DraftKings has the fight or the under 2.5 rounds sitting at plus 140.
Under 2.5 for Sumudaerji and Manel Kopp at plus money.
Yep.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
It looks like
When did this open? Like 5 minutes before we went live, there were no lines on this shit.
no, so they don't show them on Best Fight Odds for some reason. You have to go on the app.
Okay, okay. That's a bet. That's an absolute bet. I mean, we're talking about 28 of 31 combined wins coming inside the distance for these guys, and I believe that it's going to be a striking match. And both of these guys hit extremely hard. I mean, not just anybody knocks out Malcolm Gordon, my friend.
What? Wait, what?
Yeah, I saw you looking down. I wanted to make sure you were paying attention. Yeah, no, I mean, I know he's very easy to knock out, actually, but that was very impressive. The performance that Sue put on against Malcolm Gordon, those were serious shots that were landing, and I get why Malcolm quit. I mean, it wasn't like he ate just one. Sue hits hard, and so does Manel Kopp. So at plus money, man, I think that's a great bet. I'm going to go bet that shit right now.
Yeah, so it looks like on Bet Online, they actually had the line out for a little bit, then they took it off. I don't know what Bet Online's doing, but they had the under 2.5 at plus 160, and then they had it to plus 145, and then they completely took it off. But yeah, DraftKings still has the under 2.5, and it's sitting at plus 140.
Yeah, I think whoever set that line was like pulled out of their office, pulled into the boss's office, fired promptly, and then they actually had the security guard already packing up that dude's desk while he was getting fired by the boss, sent out the door unceremoniously. The boss came out of the office and announced to everybody else that was working there, this is what you fucking had. This is what happens when you set an under 2.5 at plus money when these guys are 28 out of 31 finishing their wins inside the distance. Let that be a lesson to the rest of you. And now I'm going to go bet it because I'd be a moron if I didn't.
I like it. I like it. I like it. Yeah, I'll probably be on that as well. I was on the Kopp under, I think his last 2 fights, and it worked out. I think I'm going to be on it again there. So yeah, that dude got fired, right?
That guy got so fired, man. There is no way that dude still got a job, man. I am telling you, at plus 140, I am in there.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I hope Bet Online and them get those lines out pretty soon. They've had all day, but hopefully soon. Hopefully by tonight or early tomorrow. But we'll move on to the next fight. We have Macy Barber going against Montana De La Rosa. We have Macy Barber, 23 years old, 5'5" with a 65-inch reach. 27 years old is Montana De La Rosa with a 5'7" reach and 5'7" height, and then a 68-inch reach. Macy Barber, 4 years younger. It's going to be De La Rosa with a 2-inch height advantage and a 3-inch reach advantage. Macy Barber is 3-2 in her last 5 fights. A knockout win against J.J. Aldrich, a knockout win against Jillian Robertson, a decision loss to Roxanne Modafferi, a decision loss to Alexa Grasso, and a split decision win against Miranda Maverick. As far as De La Rosa, she is 2-2 and 1 draw in her last 5 fights, a decision loss to Andrea Lee, a decision win against Mauro Morella Barella, a decision loss to Viviane Araújo, a draw against Mara Bueno Silva, and then a knockout win against Ariana Lipski. So this may not be a 1-800-GAMBLER fight, but this is a 1-800-GAMBLER fight for me. I really don't want nothing to do with this fight because it's kind of a tough one to call. We have Macy Barber, who is very young. She had that really bad injury that took her out for about a year, and she's come back and she's looked horrible, dude. Like in the Alexa Grasso fight. Do you remember that fight? That was the fight where she was like punching at air. Alexa Grasso was like 10 feet away, and Barb was like shadow boxing the entire time. She had a 26% striking accuracy in that fight. I couldn't tell if it was Macy Barber or Jeon Kim in that fight. It was that bad. And then in her next fight against Miranda Maverick, in a fight that she clearly lost, and I want to see who the judges were for that fight. Oh, Sal D'Amato. Sal D'Amato was the judge. Weezy, how you like that?
Yeah, who saw that coming, man? That guy is usually just a picture of competence. But everybody has a bad day every once in a while. And if you're Sal D'Amato, your bad day ends on the day of the week that ends in Y.
And I'm sure you can guess the other judge that is on there as well.
Was it Chris Lee?
Chris Lee was definitely judging that fight, Weezy. So it just goes. I mean, she clearly, I didn't have a bet on that fight, but I'm like, Miranda Maverick clearly won the fight. It was not even debatable. And I don't think if you go to MMA decisions, I don't think one person scored it for Barber there, but she got the win. She got the win and bounced back. But even in that fight, like you would think that she can go out there and outstrike Miranda Maverick. But no, she didn't. It was Maverick who outstruck Barber, and Barber had a 32% striking accuracy, punching more air. So, Barber had that injury. She's come back, and I really have not liked what I've seen in terms of the striking. And then we have Montana De La Rosa, who's not much of a great striker herself. She has made improvements, but you still got to favor Barber on the feet. Is Montana De La Rosa going to be able to get down Barber? If she can, I think she wins. If not, it probably is Macy Barber on the feet. Barber's takedown defense sitting at 66%. Miranda Maverick was 1 for 1 on takedowns. Jillian Robertson was 0 for 3 on takedowns. And then Roxanne Modafferi got her down once, but that was the fight where she got hurt really bad. But you go back and watch that fight, like Barber doesn't get hurt until the second round. I think she was talking about how she got hurt like in the first round, but if you go back and watch it, it's actually the second round where Modafferi drops her and she like lands weird on her leg there. And she grabs her knee right away. It was the second round. So Roxanne was able to take down a not injured Macy Barber in the first round and then control her for 3 minutes and 44 seconds. So yeah, this fight is a mess. I don't know what to do with it. I'm not going to bet it, but I do see that Barber's a very big favorite with money pouring in on her, and that makes me extremely uncomfortable. But I'll feel really good knowing that I'll have $0 on this one.
Yeah, okay, so let's just break it down, man. Macy Barber's still only 23 years old. So, I mean, everything that we got to talk about with Macy Barber thus far has to be viewed through that lens. Both of these ladies are great finishers, Brady. 4 out of 5 UFC wins for Barber inside the distance. 4 out of 5 UFC wins for De La Rosa inside the distance. So they both finish. These girls are finishing at an 80% rate. This division finishes at a 40% rate. So we got a couple of great finishers here. Barber is going to have the better striking metrics here. And De La Rosa will have the better grappling metrics here. But, like you mentioned it, we saw Barber get hurt in the Modafferi fight, hurt her knee. And then, comes back and we just don't really see a fighter that seems to be as dangerous. We see a fighter in Macy Barber that here's what I think her best qualities are. This girl's tough as nails. When she was legitimately hurt, and I think that she might have honestly been hurt in the first, there just wasn't as much visual evidence of it. I don't think that she would have said something like that unless she really did injure the knee in the first, because she showed a ton of heart in that fight. She was clearly compromised and never quit. And then even in the Miranda Maverick fight, I think the reason that she won that fight is because she absolutely went ballistic the last 20 seconds of the third round, stole that round. And then, Sal D'Amato and Chris Lee stole some money, and then she got the decision. But, she did win the end of that one round, and I think that changed the fight. And that was Macy Barber being Macy Barber, getting mad, deciding, you know what, I'm gonna try to kill this fucking girl in the last 20 seconds. And she's that kind of fighter. She needs to be a little bit angry. She needs to be walking forward. Macy doesn't have great reach, 65 inches here. It's not good enough. De La Rosa's taller and longer here. So I see Barber having to march forward, be mean, close the distance. But then again, if she does that, Montana De La Rosa is very good in the grappling exchanges here. Barber has been controlled for almost 25% of the 77 minutes that she's been in the UFC cage. That's a lot. So it's an interesting stylistic matchup for me. When we go over here to the strength of schedule, the problem that we see is that Montana De La Rosa's wins are against losing competition with a 0.7 ratio and 3.4 total fights, while Barber's wins are coming against some really good competition. Winning records, 6.2 total fights, 1.82 win-to-loss ratio. So she's fighting the more experienced competition. She's beating the more experienced competition. She's younger. And I think that she's meaner and going to be the one hopefully walking forward here. But, if she winds up on the ground with Montana, I think that this is going to be very interesting. It's a weird fight because Barber's never been finished. De La Rosa's only been finished twice in 6 pro losses. So, and that was a long time ago. So it's a very hard fight to call, but you say that one of them is kind of a big dog, huh?
Yeah, I mean, this fight is so close. We have Macy Barber, who opened up minus 155. She's currently minus 187. And then De La Rosa opened up at plus 135, and she's currently plus 162. The over-under set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 minus 260, under 2.5 plus 200. The fight goes to decision minus 220. The fight doesn't go is plus 180. I just cannot get to Barber at nearly minus 200. I think this can be a very, very close competitive fight. I mean, you have Barber with the striking, and then you have Montana De La Rosa, who's a very good grappler, and she's active in terms of getting the fight down to the mat.
Yeah, I mean, like when you look at the striking metrics, it looks pretty much in favor of Barber. She's more accurate. She's better defensively. She lands way more than she absorbs. But then when you look at those grappling numbers, Barber's landed 7 takedowns and her opponents have only landed 2. So she's getting like 3.5 takedowns for every one that her opponent gets on her. But she's getting out-controlled 25% to 15%. And then you see De La Rosa, 14 takedowns for her, only 3 takedowns for her opponents. Yet she's out-controlling her opponents at like a 6-to-1 ratio. So you got to believe, maybe when it's on the feet, it's going to be leaning Barber. Maybe when it's on the cage, that's where Barber does her best work here. But when it's on the ground, man, if Montana De La Rosa gets on top, she might be able to win a lot of minutes there and fish for submissions. And that could be her road here, is to get this fight to the ground and win minutes on the ground, because it looks like you can do that to Macy.
Yeah, and that control really jumps out from Montana De La Rosa, 42%. Like, that's impressive.
That's 18 minutes that Macy Barber's been controlled out of 77, and that's only on 2 takedowns. That's weird, man. She's easy to control, and Montana out-controlling her opponents 43% to 7%. That's a big fat path to victory right there. But we gotta keep in mind that Macy's fought the better competition. She's younger, she's meaner, she should be walking forward here, and she's got the much better striking metrics.
Yeah, I can't bet on this fight. If anything, it's dog or pass for me. Somebody in the chat said a Rosa by decision, which is plus 275. I don't know. I'm going to pass unless the line gets like unless it's like Barber like minus 250 later in the week, which would be weird, but maybe then I'd take a shot on De La Rosa, but it's dog or pass, but I think I'm just going to pass on this one. It's a very close fight though.
Yeah, it is, but this next one is very, very interesting too. I like that Barber De La Rosa fight, but I think that this next one is even more interesting and more fun.
Yeah, I think people are going to say this one is the people's main event, and rightfully so. We have Lando Vanatta going against Charles Jourdain. We have Vannata, 30 years old, 5'9", with a 71-inch reach. Charles Jourdain, 26 years old, 5'9", with a 69-inch reach. We have Jourdain, who is 4 years younger, and it's going to be Vannata with a 2-inch reach advantage. We take a look at the last few fights. Vannata is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, had a submission win against Marcos Mariano, a decision loss to Mark Diakese, a decision win against Yancy Medeiros, a decision loss to Bobby Green, and then a decision win against Mike Grundy. As far as Charles Jourdain, he is 2-2 and 1 draw in his last 5 fights, a decision loss against Andre Fili, a draw against Josh Culibao, a knockout win against Marcelo Rojo, a submission loss to Juliana Rosa, and then a decision win against Andre Yule. On paper, for me at least, I think this is one of the closer fights of the night. I feel like this one can go either way. I feel like neither of these guys are really going to go for takedowns, but if it is, I think it's going to be the Vannata side. We have seen Charles Jourdain really struggle in terms of the takedown defense. I think his get-up game's good, so maybe if Vannata comes in here, tries to go for takedowns, I think that would be smart, but I do expect the majority of this fight to stay standing. Both guys are very fun strikers. I definitely see why they put this matchup together, but as far as picking a winner or betting anything, I'm really struggling to really lean on one side. So Weezy, help me out here. How do you like this fight?
I think it's a great fight. So Jourdain, 4 years younger, Vannata a little bit bigger, 4-inch reach advantage here. Vannata spent a lot of his career up at lightweight, has moved down to featherweight now. Vannata 2 more pro fights, but it's Jourdain with more minutes. And it's Vannata with 4 more years as a pro and 4 more UFC level fights, almost 40 more minutes in the pro cage, in the UFC cage here. So both of these guys are finishers. Jourdain, 11 of 12 wins inside the distance. For Vannata, it's 9 of 12. That's 20 of 24 wins coming inside the distance here. So that is over 80% combined finish rate in these guys' wins. But if you're looking to bet that fight doesn't go to decision, be very careful, because in these guys' 9 combined losses, only 2 have been inside the distance. So these guys are both very durable, very difficult to finish. So I think if you're one of those guys like me that looks for losses being a little bit more important than wins when it comes to figuring out when you got a good sample size of both as to which one to play in terms of whether the fight will go or fight doesn't go, I like big or low losses inside the distance to correlate to fight going to decision. And this should be a striking match. I really don't see these guys, especially Jourdain, only 3 takedown attempts in 7 fights, and he's never gotten one. And even when he does get taken down, he tends to get right back up. And then we look at Lando Venato, right? 10 takedowns, but only 6.27% control time. So that would be about 7-8 minutes of control time on 10 takedowns. So this guy's not a control time monster. And Charles Jourdain has only allowed about 10 minutes of control time on 13 takedowns. So even if Vannata gets like 3 or 4 takedowns, it might not even mean that he gets 3 minutes of control time here. So I see whoever wins the stand-up exchange is winning this fight. And we're going to have Vannata with that reach advantage of 2 inches here, that experience advantage, with having more UFC level fights, 4 more years as a pro. And, he can mix in that wrestling to win him a minute or 2 here or there. But, I think both of these guys do prefer to stand. It's going to be Jourdain, who has not faced the better brand of competition here. Vannata's got the better overall competition and more experience, and he's got the better wins at the UFC level, and he's lost to the better competition as well. So we love the strength of schedule here for Vannata. We love that 2-inch reach advantage for Vannata. We love the UFC experience advantage for Vannata. And we love the fact that he could probably mix in a takedown here or there to win a minute or 2 on the ground. But I think that we've got to really handicap who's going to win, where I think 85% of this fight is most likely to take place, and that's in the striking. And you see good power numbers for both of these guys, good durability for both of these guys. Both of these guys throw a ton of volume. It's just that Jourdain a little more accurate and a little bit better in the defensive metrics as well. This one might be Jourdain, as much as I hate to say it, because I think it's going to be a great fight. And I think Vannata's, a little bit more well-rounded, and, there's a lot more things to like in the statistics on the Vannata side. But I'm handicapping that this fight takes place standing most of the time. And I love that Jourdain's landing 5.7 and I'm only absorbing 4.57. I love that 60% striking defense. I love the fact that he's landing a knockdown on over 1% of the significant strikes that he's landing, almost twice as many knockdowns per 15 minutes than Vannata. There's a lot to like here, but I think this is a very, very close, very fun to watch, striking match taking place in the middle of the cage here.
Yep, it's really close. And like you said, I do think Vannata is going to come in here thinking about going for takedowns. I think he does get a couple, but he's not going to hold Jourdain down. Yes, Jourdain's takedown defense is very bad, but he's getting up right away. Jourdain is a black belt as well. And like we said, Vannata is not controlling anybody. So I think this fight does primarily stay standing. And I'll tell you what, Jourdain, this guy's 26 years old. This guy is making improvements. His last fight against Andre Ewell, I know they cut Andre Ewell, which I don't really agree with. I am a big fan of Andre Ewell. He was on a 3-fight skid, but they did cut him. But regardless, Jourdain went out there. That was the best Jourdain has ever looked. Remember the end of the 3rd round when Jourdain just went crazy? This guy's a madman. So I think it does primarily stay standing. I do agree with the volume. I do agree with the power. But, Vannata's no slouch on the feet in his own right. This is going to be a very close and competitive fight. Let's take a look at the line. We see that the line is pretty close. It's Jourdain opened up -120. He's currently -127. Vannata opened up +100, currently +107, +107. So, yeah, fairly close, and I kind of agree with the odds. I think Jourdain, very slight favorite, makes sense to me. The fight goes to decision, -150. The fight doesn't go as +120, over 2.5, -180, under 2.5, +150. And, yeah, like you said, both these guys are very, very good finishers. It's just both these guys are, tough as nails. So I think the fight would be interesting, but I don't know if I have the balls to play that, honestly.
Yeah, at -150, I might just have to do it because, I love the fact that in 9 combined losses, which is a very good sample size, And hey, look, 8 combined UFC losses here. And in those 8 combined UFC losses, only 2 of them inside the distance, 25% implied probability, while the fight goes to decision, sitting at minus 150 is a 60% implied probability. So you kind of like that there. That is really good. I might have to play that one just because I love the durability of both of these guys, but damn, they're both so dangerous on the feet too. They're both landing a lot of knockdowns. It looks like 6 knockdowns in 7 fights for Jourdain, and it looks like 5 knockdowns in 11 fights for Vannata. But both of these guys pretty durable too. 2 knockdowns against for Jourdain and only 1 for Vannata, and that's an 18 combined fights. So yeah, very, very interesting striking battle. These guys are going to be throwing a lot of interesting looking strikes. Great fight. I think it goes to decision. I'm leaning Jourdain here.
Yeah, I think it does as well. But you know me, I'm not really a fight goes or over guy, but we'll talk about that one more specifically on probability on Thursday, which, by the way, guys, make sure you guys check out the MMA Engine. Me and Weezy will be on there for Thursday for our new show, Probability. Hopefully the orderlies or the bookies don't kick Weezy off. They've never seen that happen before, but yeah, they don't want us doing that show apparently, right?
I don't see why they would, man, because these kind of analytics are the things that people are paying a ton of money for. But over at the MMA Engine, we're trying to provide some really low cost, high quality analytics and decision making tools for you guys, because these bookies win enough money, man. Why let them win any more off of us, dude? Let's get it back from them.
Exactly. That's always the goal. Co-main event here. Clay Guida going against Claudio Puelles. We have Clay Guida, 40 years old, 5'7", with a 70-inch reach. Claudio, 25 years old, 5'11", with a 72-inch reach. Claudio's going to be 15 years younger. Not only that, he's going to have a 4-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage as well. We'll take a look at the last few fights. We have Clay Guida, 2-3 in his last 5 fights. A submission loss to Jim Miller, a decision loss to Bobby Green, a decision win against Michael Johnson, a decision loss to Mark Madsen, and a submission win against Leonardo Santos. As far as Claudio Puelles, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, and his career has been very, very weird to say the least. So this is Claudio Puelles, who made his debut when he was very young, like 18 or 19 years old. He goes out there and he gets his ass absolutely shaved against what was his fate? Yeah, Martin Bravo. Martin Bravo shaved this guy's ass. I think he was like 19. And then he takes 2 years off, comes back, and then he beats Felipe Silva in a fight where he was getting his ass shaved as well. And then he gets a Hail Mary knee bar, like one of the best comebacks you'll ever see. And then he goes out there and then beats Marcus Mariano, who's not really great. And then he takes another 2-year layoff, comes back, and then beats Jordan Levitt, which was a pretty good win. And then he goes out there and beats Chris Grutzmacher as well and wins that fight by knee bar in the 3rd round. Yeah, this is a really weird fight. It's lined about a pick'em, and probably rightfully so. Like, this is kind of a tough fight to call because you have Claudio Puelles, who is going to have the massive teletape advantage. He's going to be so much younger, so much bigger as well. And he is training, I believe, at Sanford MMA. And you can see the improvements with his striking. Like, I wasn't expecting him to go out there and have a competitive, striking match on the feet with Chris Grutzmacher when it was on the feet. I thought it would be Grutzmacher all day, but no, it was Puelles who landed some really good shots. His striking looked much, much better than when he fought against Martin Bravo, Silva, all that good stuff. So he is making improvements on the feet. And then when he does get the fight down to the mat, this guy is a legit black belt in BJJ. Then we have Clay Guida, who this guy's 40 years old. He's going to be smaller, but Clay Guida has one weapon that is going to has won him a lot of fights, and that's cardio. And that cardio won him his last fight against Leonardo Santos, where that was the fight where Clay Guida that was the fight where Clay Guida went out there. I had a bet on Leonardo Santos. Weezy had a bet on Leonardo Santos. We should have cashed that bet on Leonardo Santos. Santos went out there and destroyed Clay Guida in the 1st round. He hurt him bad, I believe, to the body. And then he had him against the cage, and Leonardo Santos let off in like 50 unanswered punches, and Keith Peterson was just sipping bourbon on the sidelines there. I mean, this guy was smoking cigarettes. Nowhere to be found was Keith Peterson. You're watching the fight, right? And you're like, stop the fight. Then you're looking at the ref, and you don't see him. He's at the bar. He ran out of drinks, so he had to go get more. But Clay Guida, veteran savvy, came back and submitted Leonardo Santos, which was one of the craziest moments of 2021, just topped off a perfect 2021, submitting Leonardo Santos. So I guess, on the feet, I don't know. On the feet, it's pretty weird because Puelles is making improvements on the feet, and Guida's not the best striker in the world. You got to favor Guida in terms of the cardio, but if this fight hits the mat in any type of way, whether it is Puelles getting Guida down or whether it's Guida taking Puelles down for some reason, Puelles is going to sub him. Clay Guida's been submitted a massive 10 times in his career, and Puelles is a submission artist. So I guess the question is, can Puelles get this fight down to the mat? If he does, I think the sub's live. And if not, if this does stay standing for 15 minutes, I think it's going to be a pretty competitive striking fight. But it's the cardio of Guida I like. But I don't know. It's a close one, Weezy. What are your thoughts on this one? I see a lot of people, very confident on either side there.
Yeah, I don't know why you'd be really confident on either side of this fight, because there's really a lot of things I like about both fighters here. I mean, when you see one guy's 25 and one guy's 40, you like 25 there, So Puelles, much younger here, 4 inches taller, got the 2-inch reach advantage. But then again, it's Clay Guida, man. 58 professional fights, 550 minutes in the pro cage, 32 UFC level fights, 371 minutes in the UFC cage. I mean, this guy has seen it all. He's fought everybody. He's got some incredible wins. He's beaten champions, man. This guy's beaten Anthony Pettis. He's beaten Rafael Dos Anjos. He's got a long list of very impressive wins. One of the best credits to this sport, frankly. Clay Guida is the best. So we've got an interesting stylistic matchup here because Clay's pretty good on the feet, I mean, he moves a lot. So if you're trying to take Clay down, it's kind of hard to win minutes on the ground against Clay. And I mean, we've got a 32 fight sample size against the who's who of the featherweight and lightweight divisions here for Clay Guida, right? And over that gigantic sample size, this guy is getting 39% control time for and allowing less than 9% control time against. And when we see what Puelles is doing here, 50% control time for and 13.75% control time against. So he's kind of doing a lot of the same stuff that Guida was doing to win fights, which is get the fight down on the ground and win minutes there and then hopefully finish the fight there because Puelles is slick, man. I mean, he's looking for knee bars. He's looking for kind of like some champagne submissions, which means that there's a few places that you don't really want to be with this guy. But the wins aren't particularly impressive. I mean, Clay Guida's fought the much better brand of competition. He's beaten the much better brand of competition. I mean, like the guys that he's losing to on average have 16 UFC fights and a 1.65 win-to-loss ratio here, while Claudio Puelles has 5 UFC fights, and his wins are against Felipe Silva, no longer with the promotion, Marcos Mariano, who's only there because he's Anderson Silva's friend, Jordan Levitt, and Chris Gritzmacher. So, this is a huge step up for Puelles here, and Guida is a good enough wrestler to probably keep this fight standing if he wants it to. And I think if he does, he probably should win this fight. You see that 33% striking accuracy for Guida. It's, he couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat, but it's really not that important because the reason that Clay is inaccurate with his striking is because he's constantly moving. And it's got to be incredibly frustrating to try to corral this guy on the feet and land strikes. And that's another great thing that we see right here is Clay Guida over a 32 fight sample size, is showing over 60% striking defense. So this guy, and he's very, very difficult to hit. So I think Clay can win minutes on the feet here. I think Clay can stop the takedowns of Puelles. Puelles is a good wrestler, and he's a very good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, but it's hard to take down good wrestlers. Shit, man. Mark Madsen just fought this guy and didn't even bother to try to take him down. Which was weird to see because he was clinching with Clay, but wasn't getting anywhere with the clinch and was just voluntarily breaking the clinch and trying to land strikes on the way out rather than try to waste energy trying to wrestle this guy. So, I kind of like this one for Clay, man. I mean, he's 40 years old. You can make an argument that he's lost 4 of his last 5 fights, but look at those names. Leonardo Santos, Mark Madsen, Olympic wrestler, Michael Johnson, Bobby Green, Jim Miller. I mean, these guys are legends. Puelles is young. He's getting better. He's very dynamic on the ground, and he's fighting to his game plan. He goes in there with a plan and he executes it. I just don't know, man. This is a weird one. I don't think he's going to be able to take down Clay and win minutes on the ground against him here. And if he doesn't, I think Clay's going to win this fight.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to take him down either. I saw somebody in the chat saying that, Clay Guida should take down Puelles. I don't think he should. I think if I'm Guida, I'm just stuffing the takedowns, keeping it on the feet, and trying to outpoint him, out cardioing him as well. Like, Puelles has bad cardio. So yeah, I'm not betting on this fight for sure. It's a 100 gambler fight for me personally. If I was to bet anything, it'd probably be a shot on the Puelles by sub, which is plus 450 right now. Just based on the fact that Guida's been submitted 10 times and 20 losses. But other than that, it's going to be a pass for me. The line actually flipped. So it was Clay Guida that opened up plus 150. He's currently minus 103. And it is Puelles who opened up minus 175. No, he opened up minus 175. He immediately went to plus 130. He was sitting at plus 120 for about 2 weeks, and then just recently moved to minus 117. So the line kind of flipped recently there. Looks like it's a pick 'em on most books, and I kind of agree with the pick 'em there. Like I said, anything, it's going to be, I think the fight goes decision minus 200 is not terrible. What do you think of the fight goes?
Oh, God. So, yeah, this is a lightweight fight. These fights do go to decision around 50% of the time. So the fight goes is priced right there with the divisional finish rate. And, Clay's finishing at a 41% rate in the UFC. Puelles, 50% rate in the UFC. And these guys are getting finished in 9 of 16 combined losses. But remember, those are all Guida's losses. And, the guys that are finishing Guida, they're not Claudio Puelles, okay? So, yeah, I mean, I think it probably does go to decision, but I wouldn't bet it at minus 200, man. That's too wide.
I can't lay $1 on this fight. So we'll move on to the main event, I believe, right? Yeah, the main event. We have Amanda Lemos going against Jesessica Andrade. We have Lemos, who is 34 years old, 5'4", with a 65-inch reach. Jesessica Andrade, 30 years old, 5'1" with a 62-inch reach. Andrade, 4 years younger, actually. You would maybe think that Lemos would be the younger fighter. She's definitely younger with 13 fights, but it's Andrade with 31 fights, but still 4 years younger. Andrade is going to be undersized against anybody she faces. She's going to be at a 3-inch height disadvantage and a 3-inch reach disadvantage as well. We take a look at the last few fights. Amanda Lemos is 5-0 in her last 5 fights. A submission win against Miranda Granger, a decision win against Mizuki Inoue, a knockout win against Livian Souza, a knockout win against Montserrat Ruiz, and then a decision win against Angela Hill. Andrade, she is 2-3 in her last 5 fights, a knockout loss to Zhang Weili, a decision loss to Rosa Namajunas, a knockout win against Caitlin Chukagian, knockout loss to Valentina Shevchenko, and a knockout win against Cynthia Calvillo as well. So this is going to be a massive step up in competition for Amanda Lemos. Lemos did make her debut against Leslie Smith that was at 135 pounds. Kind of a weird fight. You can't really look into that fight that much. I think she has shored up that part of her game a little bit. And of course, that was up 2 weight classes. So she looked horrible in that fight, but I think you can't really look into it that much. We have seen her go 3 rounds since against Mizuki Inoue. She looked all right. And then she did go 3 rounds against Angela Hill. I personally thought she lost the fight. It was Lemos round 1, Hill round 2, and then round 3 was kind of up in the air. Really could have went either way there, but very close and competitive fight as well. Jesessica Andrade has fought the who's who. You take a look at her last couple losses: Valentina Shevchenko, Rose Namajunas, fighters like that. JJ, Joanna. She's fought, very good competition here. So this is kind of going to be like a step down. But, Lemos is no joke at all. She hits very hard, but I kind of worry about what Lemos looks like in the 2nd round and the 3rd round. And on top of that, this is a 5-round fight. If this does get to the 4th and 5th round, what is she going to look like? Because I don't like what I see from Lemos in the 2nd round and 3rd round. So I think it's kind of Lemos round 1, or I think Andrade takes over and eventually finishes her herself. I think this is going to be a very fun fight. Andrade is going to come forward the entire time, throw hard shots. Lemos is going to throw hard shots. I actually think somebody gets knocked out. Weezy, which way you lean on this one?
Yeah, I'm definitely leaning Andrade here. She's younger, but it's going to be Lemos who's bigger, obviously. But I mean, like that strength of schedule is not, I mean, it's not even close. They're not in the same stratosphere when it comes to the level of competition that these ladies have fought and beaten. Um, so in Andrade, 18 more fights, 200 more minutes of cage time, 3 more years as a pro, 14 more UFC level fights, 150 more minutes in the UFC cage. So you got to love that for Andrade here. She's very experienced. And then you look at the finish rates for these ladies. Andrade in her 13 UFC wins is finishing at a 53% rate. So that's 7 of 13 inside the distance. Lemos finishing 3 of 5. So that is 10 of 18 finishing inside the distance. And then in their losses, Andrade has actually been finished 5 of 7 times, and for Lemos, it's 1 of 1. So it's 6 of 8. 75% of these ladies' finished losses, I should say, have come inside the distance. So that's really good. You like that for a fight doesn't go, especially when it's a 5-round fight, and Amanda Lemos seems to bring maybe 2.5 rounds worth of cardio. If we look at the striking numbers, it's Lemos that you really have to worry about at distance here. I mean, she's got clean, crisp, straight down the pipe striking that's got ridiculous amounts of power. This lady has landed 5 knockdowns in 6 fights, and this is at a weight class, where, I mean, she's, that kind of power is just simply not heard of. Like the 9th best, knockdown rate in the strawweight division is 0. Because there's only like 8 strawweights that even have a knockdown. It's just not something that you see in this division at all. So Lemos has got transcendental power. But Jesessica Andrade wins a lot of minutes on the ground. She outcontrols her opponents at almost a 3-to-1 clip on the ground. She's getting her takedowns at over a 55% clip. She's landed 38 takedowns in 20 fights. And is averaging almost 3 takedowns per 15 minutes. While Amanda Lemos, in 45 minutes of cage time, has been controlled about 13 minutes of that cage time on 1 takedown. So she is somebody that can lose minutes on the ground, whether if it's her getting knocked down or getting her back taken standing or getting her back put up against the cage and held there. It's going to be very clear to me that Jesessica Andrade has a very clear game plan and path here, Brady. Don't stand in the middle of the cage. Don't box with this girl. Clinch up with her. Walk forward like a zombie with your hands up. Clinch up. Get her back up against the cage. Take her down and work her over there. Jesessica Andrade has fought 135-pound women and taken them down and controlled them. She's done it at 125 as well. Lemos is a 34-year-old, 115-pounder. I think that we're going to see what a huge step up in competition it is to go from Angela Hill to Jesessica Andrade. I think it's going to be very, very evident here. And then when you combine Andrade's ability to get the fight to the ground and dominate there and get the fight to the clinch and dominate there. And then also knowing how dangerous Lemos is at distance, you got to believe that Jesessica Andrade is just going to be zombie girl in this fight, walking forward, clinching up, and really making this a dirty, nasty fight for Lemos. And I see this fight definitely finishing inside the distance one way or another.
Yeah, and you mentioned the takedowns of Andrade. I think they'll be there all day, and I think it would be smart to implement the takedowns early and often. Clinch against Lemos early and often, because Lemos is most dangerous in that first round. Once you get out of the first round, then you can go and start putting the pressure on with the striking there. But I think the biggest advantage I give Jesessica Andrade is the cardio. Like, Andrade has been 5 rounds. She has been 3 rounds, and she doesn't slow down. Like, it's crazy because Andrade, she like throws everything into all of her shots, and she doesn't slow down. She has great gas tank. Whereas Lemos, she throws everything into her strikes, and she does really, really slow down. So yeah, I like Andrade a lot. I mean, and I'm tempted to bet her even. It's just, Lemos hits like a truck for 115 pounds is the only reason I have not. And Andrade is, on the hittable side. Andrade has been knocked out many times before. She got knocked out by Valentina, no shame in that. Got knocked out by Zhang Weili, no shame in that in the first round. And she got knocked out by Liz Carmouche back in 2013. She got subbed by Renault and she got subbed by Pennington. So she's been finished in the UFC 5 times throughout her career.
135 though.
Yeah, that is true. So I think Lemos is round 1 or bust here, honestly. So I'm tempted on the Andrade money line. It's sitting at -177 right now. I see -175. Lemos sitting at +152. But what I'm most tempted on, my goodness, is the fight doesn't go. -180 on 5 dimes, -200 on Bet Online. I think it's Lemos early or Andrade really whenever she wants. So I like the fight doesn't go mostly, but I might be adding on to some Andrade, whether it's Andrade straight, Andrade inside the distance, which is sitting at +120 with like a better price. And then maybe some round sprinkles on Andrade as well. Andrade round 3, +900, Andrade round 4, +1100, Andrade round 5, +1400. They're not giving you anything on that, but I bet you FanDuel and DraftKings will. But yeah, I like Andrade to kind of break Lemos as the fight goes on.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what's going to happen here. I mean, you just look at a picture of Jesessica Andrade and it just inspires confidence. You look at that jaw, those handsome features of hers. I'll tell you something, man. I got a big mop of hair here, Brady, but the day I do decide to cut this hair, let me tell you something. I'm bringing a picture of Jesessica Andrade into the barbershop with me, and I'm saying, this is what I want. I want to look clean. I want to look strong. I want to have a haircut that inspires confidence, a haircut you could set your watch to, that masculine, it's like the standard. It's the standard of a good, strong, short haircut there. And you look at all the numbers that are behind the haircut too, the level of competition that she's beaten here, and you see the big step up that Lemos is taking. You kind of can handicap this fight is that, Lemos round 1, maybe the beginning half of round 2, but other than that, Andrade is probably going to be better just about everywhere except for the distance striking, and I think that the conditioning will help her really break Lemos late if Lemos does not get that early knockout.
Yeah, and if we're handicapping it based off of the haircuts, Lemos has a good haircut.
She does.
Andrade, it's amazing. I mean, you can't get much better than that, especially as of late. I've noticed that Andrade's haircut's been on point. Like maybe she found a new barber as of late.
It's like when Bobby Green fought Makhachev, and you're like, hey, look, Bobby Green's a good wrestler. But I mean, Makhachev's wrestling, Lemos got a good haircut. But Andrade's haircut, man, come on, man. You could set a Rolex to that haircut, and I mean, a Rolex is precision time, baby. So, yeah, I'm going with Jesessica Andrade here. I'm betting her inside the distance, and I also am probably going to be laying a little bit on that fight doesn't go to decision as well.
Yeah, I love the fight. And it's weird saying that because this is a 115-pound women's fight, but these are the hardest 115-pound women's fighters there. Like, you have the stats, right? Like, do you know what Lemos and Andrade both rank in terms of the power?
Oh, I mean, I would have to go into the, I can get it for you here real quick.
I mean, we could talk about it some other time. It's just, I can guarantee you they're like in the top 3, both of them.
Oh, for sure. There's no question about it. Yeah. I mean, like, I've got the top 10 highlighted in every category in my database, and you're going to see both of them there. But Lemos has got to be number 1. So let me just search the Lemos.
And while you're waiting, John's bringing up, he says, you guys don't know that Mudarji is coming off a knee injury and surgery. So apparently
I did not know that. No, I did not know that. I don't know how bad it was. So that's good to know. I'm glad that he brought that up because that is
good to know. Thank you, John, for the information. See if we got anything else. John saying Andrade looks great on her IG, and her stay at the PI for over a year has helped her. Andrade round 3 ground and pound. Yeah, I think she eventually finishes Lemos leaning. I think it'd be any round, honestly, but I'm thinking she kind of breaks her 2nd, 3rd, 4th. I don't think it gets more extended than that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm looking at the stats right now, and for knockdowns per total significant strikes landed, you've got 2.04% for Lemos. The other ladies that are in the top 10, Marina Rodriguez at 0.27%. Cheyenne Vlismas at 0.37%. Dern at 0.38%. Luana Pinheiro right there at 2%, and that's in 2 fights, not Lemos's 5 fights. And we got Jandaroba at 0.5%, Diana Belbita at 1/3%, and then number 1 in the UFC, I could give you 100 guesses and you would never get it. The number 1 knockdown rate in the women's strawweight division, Silvana Gomez Juarez, with 7.69%, because she landed a knockdown against Demopoulos, but only landed like 4 strikes in the fight. So, it's Lemos and pretty much everybody else.
Yeah, for sure. So that power is definitely there. All right. So we do a dono, take no prisoners. He says, Weezy, good call with Bilal. Should have listened. That was my parlay up. So yeah, Weezy, good call with Bilal. Bilal fought a very smart game plan.
He did, and he always fights the smart game plan. And the reason that I got on the Bilal side was because I saw how few times Luque had faced a grappling heavy game plan, and that when he had faced them, they were 3 of his worst fights in the UFC. So it just made sense to make that bet for me. I actually parlayed him with Kayo at the casino when I was with Narco Cop and Tim Troiano. Shout out Narco Cop MMA, Tim Troiano. Check out the Lambo Plays podcast, a fantastic show. But got to hang out with those guys. Hit a 5-unit parlay by parlaying Bilal and not a 5. I bet 1 unit on it, 1-5 on the Bilal Kayo parlay. That was sweet.
Nice, good stuff. Good stuff. Diehard, what's up, Clint? How you doing? Just got done watching your show before this. It was a pretty good show there. So yeah, I think that's about it. It's kind of late. I'm tired. I've been looking into this all day. I still got to do one more workout. It's been a long day, but finally done. 11 fights, potentially 10. People were saying that the Dwight Grant fight might be off. Maybe we'll have to see. I know DraftKings said it was off, but unless Big Marcel says it, I can't believe nothing, right? You got to wait till Big Marcel says it.
You got to wait until him or somebody, one of the other big names that you see. Yeah. So, yeah,
for sure. But yeah, Weezy, let everybody know where they can find you, what you have going on throughout the week. I know we'll be doing our show on Thursday as well with Probability.
Yeah, Probability on the MMA Engine YouTube channel on Thursday. I will be going live tomorrow night, 10 o'clock Central Time on my channel, Uncle Weezy, to do just the tip. We'll be breaking down all 11 of these fights from a statistical and tape study perspective. Wednesday, you can find me right back here on Pub Sports Radio for the DFS show that I do with you, Brady, and Luke, and Monk. And yeah, I mean, you can find me also on my own channel. I'm always doing Balls Deep breakdowns and Ask Weezy, and I'll be doing a Balls Deep breakdown on the MMA Engine YouTube channel probably on Wednesday night as well this week. So keeping real busy for this card. But there's some great spots sticking out here. It's not the best card from a name value perspective, but hey, man, as long as we're stacking cash tickets like flapjacks, it's a good card every week. So let's do that this week. 11 fights. Let's make some money on UFC Vegas 52, you guys. Thank each and every one of you guys for hanging out late on a Monday night on Pub Sports Radio with Brady and your Uncle Weezy, man. Let's get it this week.
Let's do it. Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter, DFS_numbers, Instagram, DFS by the numbers. You can find me here on Pub Sports on the MMA Engine. Like I said, Weezy and I will be going live for Probability on Thursday. Make sure you guys tune into that. Other than that, my full card breakdown prediction video will be sometime tomorrow. Research already done. Just gotta. Oh, that's your cat. I was like,
that's my cat. Yeah, that's through a closed door too. She's so loud, man.
She scared me. I thought something was wrong here, but yeah. Thank you guys for hanging out. We'll be back next Sunday, back on the regular schedule. Easter kind of threw us off a day. Wanted to spend time with family there, but yeah, best of luck. UFC Vegas 52. Not the best card in the world, but I think it's a really interesting and solid betting card with some solid fights on it. So that's about it, guys. Best of luck, and we'll talk to you very soon. See you guys.